The note was on the kitchen table. 3 words written in black ink on white paper. I was here. Tony DeLuca stared at it, his hand shaking so badly he could barely hold his coffee cup. This was the 23rd note. 23 nights in a row. 23 times someone had broken into his home while he was sleeping, while his wife and 2 daughters were sleeping, had walked through his house, had stood in his kitchen, had left a note. And Tony knew exactly who it was. It was March 28, 1958, 7:42 a.m. Tony sat at his kitchen table in his house in Queens, surrounded by the security measures he'd installed over the past 3 weeks. New locks on every door, bars on the ground floor windows, a German shepherd in the backyard, motion sensor lights, a loaded shotgun under his bed. None of it had worked. Every single morning for 23 days, Tony had woken up to find a new note on his kitchen table. I was here. Sometimes the note was in the kitchen, sometimes on his nightstand, once on his bathroom mirror, once tucked into his daughter's teddy bear. The message was always the same. And Tony DeLuca, enforcer for the Lucchese crime family, a man who'd broken bones and burned buildings and made people disappear, was losing his mind. Because he knew this wouldn't stop until Bumpy Johnson decided it would stop. And Bumpy Johnson had 30 more days planned. To understand why Bumpy Johnson spent 30 nights breaking into Tony DeLuca's home without ever being seen, without ever being caught, you need to understand what happened 4 weeks earlier. February 28, 1958, 2:17 a.m. Mayme Johnson woke to the sound of breaking glass. She was alone. Bumpy was in Atlantic City for a business meeting, wouldn't be back until morning. Mayme sat up in bed, listening. Footsteps downstairs, heavy, deliberate, not trying to be quiet. She reached for the phone on the nightstand, but before she could dial, her bedroom door opened. A man stood in the doorway, tall, thick build, wearing a dark coat. His face was partially covered by a scarf, but his eyes were visible, cold, empty. Mrs. Johnson, the man said. His voice was rough, Brooklyn accent. Don't scream, don't move, just listen. Mayme's hand stayed on the phone. The man took 3 steps into the room. Your husband owes people money, important people. He's been operating in territory that doesn't belong to him, and those people want him to understand there are consequences. Get out of my house, Mayme said. Her voice was steady, but her heart was racing. When I'm done talking. The man pulled out a switchblade, clicked it open. The blade caught the light. Tell Bumpy that his business in the Bronx needs to stop. Tell him he's got 1 week to pull out completely, or next time I come back, I won't be here just to talk. He stepped closer to the bed. You understand me, Mrs. Johnson? Mayme stared at him, memorizing his face, his voice, the scar above his left eyebrow, the tattoo on his right hand. I understand, she said quietly. Good. The man closed the knife. 1 week. Tell him. He walked out of the bedroom, down the stairs, out through the front door he'd broken to get in. Mayme waited until she heard the door close. Then she picked up the phone and called Illinois Gordon. Illinois arrived 20 minutes later with 2 other men. They searched the house, checked the neighborhood, found nothing. You okay? Illinois asked. I'm fine, but Bumpy needs to know about this. Illinois called Atlantic City. Bumpy was on the next train back to New York. He arrived at 9:30 a.m. Mayme told him everything, the break-in, the threat, the description of the man. Bumpy listened without interrupting. His face showed nothing. When Mayme finished, Bumpy asked one question. Did he touch you? No. Did he damage anything besides the front door? No. Good. Bumpy nodded slowly. He stood up, walked to the window, looked out at the street. Illinois, Bumpy said quietly. Find out who this man is. I want a name, an address, and a full background by tonight. Already working on it, boss. Bumpy turned back to Mayme. Pack a bag. You're staying with your sister in Philadelphia until this is handled. Bumpy, I'm not. This isn't negotiable, Bumpy said. His voice was calm but final. He came into our home, threatened you. Until I know who sent him and why, you're not safe here. Mayme looked at her husband for a long moment, then she nodded. By that afternoon, Mayme was on a train to Philadelphia, and Bumpy was sitting in his office with Illinois looking at a photograph. Tony DeLuca, Illinois said, enforcer for the Lucchese family, works out of Queens, known for intimidation, breaking and entering, assault, suspected in 3 unsolved cases. Bumpy studied the photograph. He's got a scar above his left eyebrow. That's him. Who sent him? Best guess, Paul Vario, Lucchese captain who's been trying to expand into the Bronx. Your policy operations are in his way. Bumpy set down the photograph. Does DeLuca have a family? Illinois hesitated. Wife, 2 daughters, ages 8 and 6, lives in Queens. Address? Illinois pulled out a piece of paper, handed it to Bumpy. He read it, memorized it, then he stood up. I'm going to need Willie Lee and Marcus Cole. Tell them to meet me tonight at 11. What's the play, boss? Bumpy's answer was simple, cold, final. Tony DeLuca broke into my home and threatened my wife, so I'm going to break into his home every single night, for as long as it takes. March 1st, 1958, 2:30 a.m. Tony DeLuca's house was a modest 2-story in Queens, quiet neighborhood, streetlights every 50 feet, dogs barking occasionally in the distance. Bumpy, Willie Lee, and Marcus Cole watched the house from a car parked 2 blocks away. Lights went off at 11:45, Willie said. Nobody's moved since then. Dogs? None. Alarm system? Basic, wired to the front and back doors, nothing on the windows. Bumpy checked his watch. 2:32 a.m. Let's go. They moved silently through the neighborhood, 3 men dressed in dark clothes, faces obscured, barely visible in the shadows between streetlights. At the house, Marcus went to work on a side window. It took him 90 seconds to jimmy it open without triggering any alarms. Willie climbed through first. Marcus followed. Bumpy went last. Inside, the house was dark, silent. The layout was simple. Living room, kitchen, stairs leading to the 2nd floor. Bumpy gestured. Willie moved to watch the front door. Marcus positioned himself at the base of the stairs. Bumpy walked into the kitchen, pulled out a small notepad and pen, wrote 3 words. I was here. He placed the note on the kitchen table, right in the center, where it would be the first thing Tony DeLuca saw when he came downstairs in the morning. Then Bumpy walked back through the living room, out the window, into the night. The entire operation took 6 minutes. March 1st, 1958, 7:15 a.m. Tony DeLuca walked into his kitchen to make coffee. He saw the note immediately. White paper, black ink. 3 words. I was here. Tony's blood went cold. He ran upstairs, checked on his wife, still sleeping, checked on his daughters, both asleep in their room. He ran back downstairs, checked every door, all locked, checked every window, all secure. How the hell did someone get in? Tony called Paul Vario. Boss, we got a problem. What kind of problem? Someone broke into my house last night, left a note. Vario was quiet for a moment. What did the note say? I was here. That's it? That's it. You think it's Johnson? Has to be. I hit his place 2 days ago. Now he's hitting back. Vario's voice hardened. Change your locks, get a security system, and don't worry. This is just intimidation. Johnson's trying to scare you. Don't let him. Tony hung up. But the thing was, he was already scared. Because if someone could get into his house without waking him, without triggering any alarms, without leaving any trace, What else could they do? The pattern continued. Every single night at 2:30 a.m., Bumpy, Willie Lee, and Marcus broke into Tony DeLuca's house. Night 2, note on the kitchen table. Night 3, note on Tony's nightstand, 2 feet from where he was sleeping. Night 4, note tucked into his daughter's teddy bear. By night 5, Tony had installed new locks on every door. Bumpy bypassed them. By night 7, Tony had installed bars on the ground floor windows. Bumpy came in through the basement. By night 10, Tony bought a German Shepherd, put it in the backyard as a guard dog. Bumpy brought meat. The dog was silent. By night 15, Tony had installed motion sensor lights around the entire perimeter of his house. Bumpy disabled them before entering. By night 20, Tony wasn't sleeping anymore. He'd sit in his living room all night with a loaded shotgun across his lap. Every sound made him jump. Every shadow made him reach for the gun. But Bumpy never came when Tony was awake. Bumpy waited until exhaustion forced Tony to sleep, then entered, left the note, and disappeared. By night 23, Tony DeLuca was breaking down. He'd lost 15 pounds. His hands shook constantly. His wife was asking questions he couldn't answer. His daughters were scared because Daddy was acting strange. And every morning, without fail, there was a new note. I was here. March 24th, 1958. Tony DeLuca called Paul Vario again. Boss, I can't do this anymore. It's been 23 nights. He's in my house every single night. I don't know how he's getting in. I don't know how to stop him. Have you tried staying awake? I can't stay awake forever. I fall asleep for 2 hours and he's there. He's always there. Vario was quiet for a long moment. You want my advice? Yes. Apologize. Tony blinked. What? You broke into Bumpy Johnson's home, threatened his wife. Now he's showing you he can do the same thing whenever he wants. The only way this stops is if you make it right. You want me to apologize to Bumpy Johnson? I want you to do whatever it takes to get this psycho out of your house before he decides to do something worse than leave notes. Tony hung up. He sat in his living room for 2 hours staring at the wall. Then he picked up the phone and made a call. March 25th, 1958, 10 a.m. Tony DeLuca walked into Small's Paradise, a jazz club on 135th Street in Harlem. It was mid-morning. The club was mostly empty. A few staff cleaning up from the night before, a bartender restocking bottles, and Bumpy Johnson sitting at a corner table reading the newspaper. Tony walked over slowly. His legs felt like water. Bumpy looked up. Mr. DeLuca, I was wondering when you'd show up. Can we talk? Sit. Tony sat. His hands were shaking so badly he put them under the table. You've been in my house, Tony said quietly. Every night for 24 days. 24 nights, Bumpy corrected. Tonight will be 25. How are you doing it? I've changed the locks, installed bars, got a dog, motion sensors. Nothing works. Bumpy folded his newspaper. You broke into my home, Mr. DeLuca, threatened my wife. Did you really think there wouldn't be consequences? I was following orders. And now you're experiencing what it feels like when someone follows orders against you. Tony swallowed hard. What do you want? I want you to understand something very simple, Bumpy said. My home is sacred. My wife is off limits. You violated both. So now I'm showing you that I can violate yours anytime I want. I get it. I understand. Please, just stop. My wife is scared. My kids are scared. I'm scared. Bumpy finished. Good. That means you're learning. Tony's voice cracked. What do I have to do to make this stop? Bumpy leaned back in his chair. 2 things. First, you apologize to my wife, face to face. You tell her exactly what you did and why it was wrong. Tony nodded quickly. Okay, yes, I'll do that. Second, Bumpy continued, you tell Paul Vario that Bumpy Johnson's operations in the Bronx are not up for negotiation. Tell him if anyone from the Lucchese family comes near my business again, it won't be notes they find in their homes, it'll be bodies. I'll tell him. Bumpy studied Tony for a long moment. You're going to have nightmares about this for the rest of your life. Every time you go to sleep, you're going to wonder if someone's in your house. That fear, that paranoia, that's your punishment. You'll carry it forever. He stood up. Mayme's back home. You'll apologize to her tomorrow at 2 p.m. My address. Don't be late. Bumpy walked out of the club. Tony sat there for another 10 minutes, his whole body shaking. March 26, 1958, 2 p.m. Tony DeLuca stood on the front steps of Bumpy Johnson's home, the same home he'd broken into 4 weeks ago. He knocked. Mayme opened the door. She looked at Tony without expression. Mrs. Johnson, Tony said. His voice was barely above a whisper. I'm here to apologize. Come in. Tony stepped inside. The living room was exactly as he remembered it, except now he was the visitor. Now he was the one who was terrified. Bumpy sat in an armchair near the window. Illinois Gordon stood by the door. Willie Lee and Marcus Cole stood in the corners of the room. 4 men, all watching Tony. Say what you came to say, Bumpy said. Tony turned to Mayme. Mrs. Johnson, I broke into your home. I threatened you. I terrified you in your own bedroom. What I did was wrong, inexcusable, and I'm sorry. Mayme looked at him for a long moment. Why did you do it? I was following orders. My boss wanted to intimidate your husband. And you thought threatening a woman alone in her home was the way to do that? Tony's face burned with shame. Yes, I was wrong. Mayme walked closer to him. Do you have a wife, Mr. DeLuca? Yes. Daughters? 2. How would you feel if someone broke into your home and threatened them? Tony's voice cracked. I'd kill them. Then you understand, Mayme said quietly, why you're lucky my husband only left notes. Tony nodded, his tears in his eyes. Get out, Mayme said. And if I ever see your face again, Bumpy won't stop at notes. Tony turned and walked out. When the door closed behind him, Bumpy looked at his wife. You satisfied? No, Mayme said, but it's enough. That night, March 26, 1958, Bumpy Johnson did not break into Tony DeLuca's home. For the first time in 25 days, Tony woke up without finding a note. He checked the kitchen. Nothing. He checked his nightstand. Nothing. He checked his daughter's room. Nothing. The nightmare was over. But the fear never left. For the rest of his life, Tony DeLuca checked his doors 3 times before bed, kept a gun under his pillow, woke up at the slightest sound. Because Bumpy had proven something worse than violence. He could get to Tony any time he wanted, and Tony would never know he was coming. Paul Vario received Tony's message. Within a week, the Lucchese family had pulled all operations out of the Bronx. They never challenged Bumpy's territory again. Because the story spread. Tony DeLuca broke into Bumpy Johnson's home. Bumpy broke into Tony's home every night for 25 days. Never got caught, never left evidence, just notes. I was here. The message to every criminal in New York was clear. You can threaten Bumpy Johnson, but he'll make you live in fear for the rest of your life. And sometimes, fear is worse than death.